provide. We'll tell you.
Wise reporters who break news and make waves. Ira Joe Fisher and Dr. Max Gomez. What matters to New Yorkers matters to them. They're some of the best and brightest reporters this city has to offer. New York to the bone, only on Channel 2 News.
All right, welcome to this edition of Tech Talk with John Murphy. We're going to go into a couple different areas, some related, some not, but there's a lot going on Wall Street today. John, you talked earlier about the utility average and the fact that it's looking fairly strong here. You know, and it's picked up, what, about 40 points since it bottomed back in 1994. It's actually a pretty good rally here.
Yes, and we're trading at the highest level in over a year, Ron. So the utilities are breaking out to the upside. But I mentioned something at 1 o'clock that there's actually a correlation between the utilities and gold stocks, because when interest rates drop, this tends to give a boost. In fact, the market letter, the McClellan Market Report, published out of Glendale, California, in their latest newsletter, showed a study of the close correlation between those two. That being the case, and with gold stocks at a 3-month high, I wanted to look at one in particular, which I think is the key gold stock to watch, and we may be close to a bullish breakout. It's Barrick Gold. This has the heaviest weighting in the XAU index. In fact, it has over 30%, which is really high. And you can see that where we actually hit 27.5 today, that is where that yellow line is. For the last 2 years, we've been trying to get through that. This is a very bullish-looking pattern to me. I don't know whether we'll get through it today or even next week, but if we can clear that 27.5 level, it would be a very bullish breakout for Barrick Gold. I suspect if that happens, that would give a boost to the XAU, which might in turn give a boost to the gold market. But in any event, I think the rally in the utilities and with bonds at a 2-year high, I think it's time to start paying a little bit more attention to these gold stocks, because this is the kind of climate where some of these areas start to pick up again.
John, for the uninitiated, why would lower interest rates prompt interest in gold?
Well, for one thing, it's somewhat inflationary, Ron. In fact, with the interest rates coming down, it creates an environment where inflationary pressures start to build again. In fact, we've seen over the last month or so, you look at the oil stocks have been very strong, the gold stocks have been very strong, that generally very low interest rates produces an environment where the price of gold starts to move higher. About 2 years ago, we had a similar situation where interest rates were dropping and gold jumped about $80. Yeah. So the climate is actually somewhat bullish for gold right now.
All right, let's do the flip side of the bullish argument. Bullish on gold stocks, not necessarily, though, on a group that's already in some ways been down, the technology shares.
Well, some of them have been down, Ron. Yeah. In fact, we're going to look at 2 of the indexes. Let's start with the one that has been down, which is the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index. I think we have those charts. That's the one to the right. That index has been dropping for quite some time. Notice even, and I've made the case over the last week or so that I think this index is oversold and due for a bounce. We're not getting much of a bounce. Notice that little bounce we've had recently. We're still below the green line, which is the 200-day moving average, and we're down another 3 or 4 points today. So, so far, the semiconductor index, the chart to the right, not showing much of a bottom. One stock in particular that I'm very disappointed in, LSI Logic, is down 2.5 points today. It's already taken out its recent low. I had made some positive comments on that stock on Monday, so clearly I got that wrong. But LSI Logic down today. Semiconductor stocks heavy. But the chart to the left now, this is a broader index of technology stocks. This is a new index traded at the Chicago Board Options Exchange. The symbol is TXX. It's very similar to the Morgan Stanley Index, the Pacific Stock Exchange Index. And you'll notice that on this recent bounce, we still have not been able to approach the highs that were set at the end of October, the beginning of November. As you can see, we're on the weak side today. In fact, this index is down about 3 points today. The Pacific Stock Exchange is down a couple. The Morgan Stanley high-tech index is down about 5 or 6 points. So a lot of weakness pretty much across the board. And what concerns me a little bit is the semiconductors have been leading on the downside. It looks like it's beginning to spread to some of the other areas. And the CBO index, for example, includes like software, hardware stocks, networking stocks. They're much broader indexes. And it looks like it may be spreading into those areas as well. And of course, that's hurting the NASDAQ, which is down today.
And the networking stocks, as Joe Kernan's pointed out, down across the board today. Now, also down, John, curiously enough, and they've had not that curious. I mean, they've been up so much in the last several days. Internet-related stocks, internet access providers, Netscape, UUNet, all taking a little bit of a hit today. What do you see going on
Well,
there?
actually, they look very overextended, Ron, but we do actually have an index that includes that particular group. We have a lot of, you know, one sign of a top run in the technology stocks is every day there's another technology index coming out somewhere. I think that's a warning signal. This is a new one coming out by the American Stock Exchange. It's the Internet Index. This includes the 4 stocks that everyone is focused on, but it also includes several other stocks that provide digital interactive services. So it's not just purely the 4 stocks. But you can see even here, it's the same general idea. This particular index hit a high back in early November. We sold off a bit. We're retesting that high again. It's probably a little too early to call that a double top, but certainly that has that possibility. But it's very similar to all the indexes that we're looking at. Now, this is with the technology, the semis were the weakest, the technologies were weakening. This has been the strongest. This may be the last one to roll over to the downside. To really turn negative on this, we would have to take out that low down around 230. But clearly, we're seeing a lot of stalling in the internet issues. And by the way, they're all down today, Ron. The 2 that have been hit the hardest are UUNet, which is down 5 points today. That's already trading at a 4-week low, and that's really leading on the downside. Netscape is testing some support at 60. The other 2, Netscape and Spyglass, are closer to their highs, but they're also looking quite overextended.
And Netscape at 160, correct? Yeah,
160, I'm sorry. Yeah, but they're looking very overextended here, Ron. So I'm just nervous about the entire technology sector here.
John, what are aggressive investors and maybe even portfolio managers going to do if they need to rotate away from the internet stocks, if they start to underperform rather than outperform? What do you think is the most likely place to go?
Well, I would have thought that they might have rotated back into the semiconductor stocks if they wanted to stay in technology, because that was the most oversold area. I'm very disappointed that we can't even get a bounce there. I think the money is rotating back into defensive issues again, Ron. I know we keep talking about the oil stocks. I think the gold stocks a little bit, some of the consumer non-durables again, and I think some money's beginning to flow overseas again, you know.
Yeah. Well, Nikkei was up last night, 180 points.
The whole Pacific Rim area has been very strong. The Canadian market is very strong. The Swiss market has broken out to new highs. We're seeing some nibbling in Latin America again. I think that Americans are beginning to diversify a bit, but I think in the U.S. here, once again, they're becoming a little bit more defensive again, and they're buying utility stocks.
All right, John, we'll leave it there and see you in a couple hours. John Murphy with this edition of Tech Talk. Terry, let's go back to you.
Thanks, Ron. Coming up tonight on the Money Club, we all know there are some things in life that you can negotiate a better deal on, things like cars and homes. But what you might not know is there are a lot more things out there you can bargain for. Find out more as the Money Club's special Let's Make a Deal series continues. That's tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And in just a few moments, President Clinton is scheduled to veto the Republican balanced budget plan. CNBC will carry that event live. Also, after the break, we'll take a look at the mood on Wall Street today. Stay with us for that.
Today, the AMEX Index lost 1.82. The NASDAQ
5%. That's easy.
If you're still with friends and family, you could be missing savings on many of your calls. Call 1-800-GET-TRUE to find out how to get savings on every call on your AT&T phone bill.
I can't believe I've been this lazy so long.
I'm going to call them.
That's your true choice, AT&T.
Computer Associates says it's reached an agreement with Netscape in which it will distribute Netscape's servers with its management software. The company is saying the agreement will help secure electronic commerce on the internet. Chairman and CEO Charles Wang praised the agreement.
Our core competency in network and systems management, coupled with the overwhelming market acceptance of CA Unicenter, uniquely positions us to offer solutions to manage web servers, web clients, and the network too.
Shares of Computer Associates finishing down 4 1/8 on the trading session at 63 3/4. Educational software maker the Learning Company and SoftKey International say they've begun merger talks. This after SoftKey sweetened its hostile bid to $65 a share in cash, or about $606 million. The Learning Company has resisted SoftKey until this time, instead agreeing to be bought by Broderbund for $530 million. Checking the stocks of all three, the Learning Company up an eighth, SoftKey flat on the day, Broderbund gained 3 1/4. Speaking of the internet and the high-tech stocks, it's time to check the charts, and for that we're going to go over to John and Ted. Gentlemen?
Yes, it was kind of a good news, bad news day, and as those particular stocks have not been holding up of late, we'll take a look at that, and John will also take a look at an area that seems to be seeing some improvement, namely the utilities, and that's where we're going to start today.
That's right, Ted. Well, interest-sensitive stocks in general, with bonds moving up to a 2-year high, we've seen a lot of buying in the interest-sensitive stocks, and the utilities are kicking in here finally. In fact, they were up yesterday, again today, almost a full point today. We're trading at the highest level in almost 2 years, actually. And you can see we peaked back in September with bonds. We troughed late last year with bonds. We've been moving up. We're above the yellow trend line. We're above the 40-week moving average, which is the green line. That last little pop to the right there, that's the last couple of days. We closed a little bit above 220 today. It's the highest level, actually, since the beginning of 1994.
I mean, it looks like a nice advance there, though, where you move along, consolidate a little bit, pop up again, consolidate, pop up again. Yeah. Is that a healthy run?
It sure looks that way, Ted. It looks like the next one will be up. The next objective will be up around the 230 level. And by the way, we looked at three sub-indexes today of the utilities, and we showed that the natural gas and the telephone stocks were already above their 93 highs. The only group that's been lagging has been the electric utilities.
All right, let's move on to the next tale of two groups that is not as positive as the utilities. Not that it hasn't had a good run, but it looks like
yes,
winter is upon us.
Yes, the technology sector, Ted. We're going to show 3 different technology indexes, and you're going to notice kind of a ripple effect here. The one to the right is the SOX index. That's the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index. SOX is the symbol, and you can see this has been the weakest of the groups. It was the first to turn down. As you can see, we're still below the 200-day moving average. I've been looking for some kind of a bounce here, but so far we haven't been able to get it. We were down again today, down about 4 points. At the very least, it looks as if we're going to move back and retest the old low down around the 210 level. So the semiconductor stocks showing absolutely no bounce here. We're going to come back and take a look at one of the ones that had a particularly bad day. But before we do that, let's go to the left now. Here's another technology index. Now, this is a much broader index. It's one of the newer indexes. It's traded on the Chicago Board Options Exchange. The symbol is TXX. This is an index of 30 technology stocks, but it includes a much broader spectrum than just the semiconductors. It includes the computer stocks, the software stocks, the networking stocks. It's a much broader market. But you'll notice even here that this particular one peaked back at the end of October. We've had a relatively feeble bounce over the last couple of weeks, but you notice this last little rally hasn't even come close to testing the highs that were set back in October. So it just suggests that this weakness that we've seen in the index to the right is beginning to spill over, and we're beginning to see selling in a much broader spectrum of technology stocks. In fact, Joe Kernan, I know since Monday, has been talking about this ripple effect working its way through the technology stocks, starting with the SOX and beginning to work up to some of the internet stocks.
Speaking of the internet stocks, we have this new index, the IIX, which is an index of internet stocks, the UUNets, the Spyglasses, the Netscapes of the world. Let's take a look, and we'll show you this chart. And
this is one of the newer indexes. Just is traded on the American Stock Exchange, the internet. Now, this includes more than just the 4 internet stocks, but they are included in it. And what's interesting is this has been the strongest sector of the technology market. But you notice the problem here is this last little bounce that we've had since the end of November has come up to the old high. We were not able to move through it, and we did sell off today a bit. We're down almost 6 points.
You're still in a range here. Do you get nervous if you don't drop below 230?
Well, at this point, it makes you nervous, Ted. It indicates the rally is running out of steam. But to really indicate a reversal, a very bearish reversal. We would have to close below that 230 level and break that lower level. So at this point, all we can say is that there is some loss of upside momentum here, but certainly not a breakdown.
Let's go right to the next chart, which is LSI Logic, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier, some of those, what's a component of the CBOE tech stock index.
Yes, and this is one of the stocks, the semiconductor. I have to come back to this, Ted, because on Monday, yes, I had, this is semiconductor stock. I had made some positive comments on this stock based on one of the indicators that we looked at. As you can see, the stock has not done well. We were not able to get above that 50-day moving average, and we've really suffered a lot of damage over the last couple of days. Also, the sell-off in LSI has been on very heavy volume. Today, in particular, we closed down over 3 points, one of the most actively traded stocks on the big board. So clearly, this stock not acting well here. This is a new 6-month low. It's one of the weaker semiconductor stocks at the moment.
200-day moving average, too. You're already below the 50, but now below that.
If we close below it on the week, which would mean by Friday, that's obviously a negative. The next support level, Ted, down around the 32 level.
John, always a pleasure. We'll see you on Friday. Our technical analyst, John Murphy, with a look at Tech Talk. Let's go back to Sue for something just in. Susan?
That's right. We have some news just into us that entertainer Michael Jackson collapsed on stage at the Beacon Theater. He was rehearsing for an HBO special. He was taken to St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital. He apparently was suffering from low blood pressure, but was alert and awake when he reached the hospital. No more details are available at this point, but we'll keep you posted if they do become available. Coming up next, all the news that broke after the closing bell. Joe Kernan, our stocks editor, here with a preview. Joe?
Thanks, Sue. Got another company pretty well known adopting a poison pill. Shareholder rights plan will have that story, plus a major oil company announcing a $420 million after-tax charge. So we'll have those stories and more when Market Wrap continues in just a few minutes.